Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Search Engine Journal webinar. It's a bright sunny day here in West Virginia, and we're excited to have you all here with us. Today, we are joined by Garrett Margoutte of Directive. He's going to be sharing insights on customer generation, delivering on that promise that Demand Gen forgot about. You know, in today's day and age and technology changing so quickly, how do you compete for space in front of your customers? It's time for a new approach to understand demand generation, a different way to go to market. Today, we're going to show you how to understand and compare channel level performance, how to boldly identify and emotionally connect with your personas, and how you can leverage first-party data, and most importantly, how to grow your pipeline. That's what we're all after, right? So my name's Heather Campbell, and I'll be your moderator today. Garrett, thank you for being here with us. Can you tell us a little bit about you and Directive before we get into some housekeeping tips?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to freaking follow up that intro. Thank you so much, Heather. Very excited to be here. Very excited to talk about customer generation. I think one of the cool parts about Directive and its journey is we've always wanted to test our ideas before we tried it on our clients. And what that's led to is for about the last 8 years, right? Starting from selling social media calendars on Fiverr to building Directive into what it is today. The whole time I wanted us to grow from the services we sold to our clients. Like, in my opinion, it's hard to say you're the best at something or be an amazing agency if you aren't even good enough to make it work for yourself. And so Brian and our amazing marketing team and our growth team with Drew and everyone else involved, they're spending over $1 million a year on research and development now. And from that investment, we've created a completely new methodology for going to market. And I'm going to walk you through today how we do that, what we learned, and then why it will change your business if you adopt it. And so I'm super excited to go through this with you today.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see it too. And you bring up a really good point because a lot of agencies, especially in the marketing space, are the last ones to market themselves, right? So I'm excited to see the data that you're going to bring to us today. So for our viewers out there, if during this training presentation you have any questions or comments, please put them in the questions box at the bottom of your screen. And as you're learning and taking this information, ask for further clarification. Chances are you're not the only one that's thinking it. We will have a full Q&A at the end of the presentation. So as you think of questions, make sure you add them in the questions box, and that'll keep our flow going during. So we'll do our best to link to any resources in the chat, but if we miss one, please make sure to ask. And after the webinar, stick around for just a short survey. It takes less than 5 minutes, and this information helps us gauge what works and how we can make SEJ webinars more useful for you. So lastly, you will receive this full recording today, so watch your inbox for that here in a couple of hours. And that's enough for me. Let's get to it. Garrett, it's all yours.
Thanks, Heather. And yeah, I think, this is an advanced session, okay? So you're not here to learn stuff you already know. What I hopefully am going to be able to present to you is challenging the hypotheses, the belief system of how we all advertise, showing you data. And I want you to know that this has changed Directive, and it can change your own marketing or your client's marketing. So with that being said, we're going to start. I think we have a quick poll question. So are you a SaaS marketer actively looking for a performance marketing agency? Just let me know real quick, fill it out, yes or no, and then I think we're able to get right after it.
Yeah, so we've got those answers coming in. We'll give them a few more seconds to get those in, Garrett. So far, leading the charge is no at 89%.
It's okay. We just need one of you, y'all. Okay, we just want to help at least one of you get better. So no worries at all. We're gonna have some fun here.
All right, I'm gonna close this poll. Let's see what it looks like. Results look like 91% said no. So 9% said yes, they're actively. So there you go, all yours.
All right, thank you. And maybe at the end of this, you all are. Okay, let's see our screen. So customer generation. What is it? Is it just another buzzword? Like, do we need more buzzwords? And the truth is it's not. It's actually a evolution of trying to make demand generation work for years for myself across millions and millions of dollars and just not being able to. And the reason I wasn't able to is because I was focused on MQLs. Customer generation, which was developed in-house by ourselves, focuses on SQLs and customers. And by simply creating MQLs as the starting point instead of the end point, you completely change the way you go about your strategy. So a little bit of how it changed us. Literally, this is from, I think, January 1st of this year. We've hired, from 49 people to 122 people since, I think, February 1st. Our retention rate, the quality of the product has actually gone way better from this methodology. And then obviously the business, I think, has gone from, exponential, let's just say a very exponential growth as well. So why though? What's demand generation doing that's not working? And then what does customer generation do to change that? I think the first thing is demand gen right now is using third-party data for targeting, and we're going to unpack that more. Customer generation is using first-party data. Okay. Demand generation has had this product-led approach. Customer generation has a customer-led approach. ROI is the goal for demand generation. LTV CAC ratio is the goal. Okay. ROI is an absolute number. LTV CAC is a ratio. It's an efficiency number. It really, really changes the way you think about capital. Indicator of marketing success for demand generation is oftentimes an MQL. Indicator of revenue success for customer generation is an SQL. And then the idea oftentimes on the creative side of it is don't stand out. We're kind of B2B, right? Everybody's doing figurines. Let's do figurines. Everyone's doing this. Let's do this. It's very safe. It's design based for approval, design based on committee, instead of design based on emotional experiences and creating a human-to-human connection. Okay. So at a high level, those are some of the big differences. Now, systematically, process-wise, here's kind of how customer generation works before we get really into the nitty-gritty. So the first thing we want to do is we want to map out your total addressable market. And then that says these are the 20,000 accounts that we believe are our best customers. Then what we need to do is actually enrich those accounts, put our target persona across those accounts. So for Directive, we have computer software companies with over 100 employees that are at least using Marketo or some type of marketing automation tool. Then we built our own first-party data to enrich that with search data. And then we say, cool, these are our accounts. Then we break those up into tiers, customer segments. Here's the ones that have X amount in funding or X amount of employees, and we're going to charge this much and we're going to pay this much to get them. And then these are the service lines they're interested in, right? So we have customer segments and then products. And then we have our financial model. How much can we pay to get each customer segment for each product? Then we have the value props. What would get someone from apathy to action? And what jobs do they need to get done that we could position ourselves to be discoverable for? And then lastly, how do we use emotion, personalization, and iteration to keep improving and creating a flywheel? Okay, so that's at a high level the process here. So here are the 5 principles, okay? And we're gonna treat customer generation as a methodology today, and we're gonna unpack the specifics of each principle and how you can directly apply that to your marketing, okay? So principle number 1 is first-party data unlocks growth. First-party data in this context means data that you own, okay? And we're gonna unpack that more. Customer-led over product-led. Financial modeling is a need to have. SQLs beat MQLs every time. And then there's no such thing as B2B. When you put that all together, you have a very, very differentiated go-to-market strategy that will drive impressive returns. So first, let's look at first-party data unlocked scale, okay? So what we do here is we're going to map your total addressable market. We're going to build account lists. This is very much like ABM. The difference here is we're not using some type of ABM provider. We're going to go native to our channels and get a lot more control, okay? And we're going to be a lot more creative than just sending people display ads. So first step for building your TAM, you need to choose your data provider, okay? I'm slightly biased and we do all the work for them. ZoomInfo is still the leader, in my opinion, in this space. But there's other players that are great at certain things. Clearbit does really well with tech. Seamless does really, really well with accuracy. And Crunchbase does really well with funding. So depending on what triggers you think are most indicative of the data that makes an account a great fit for your product or service, you should choose one of these providers or multiple of these providers, okay? But what you got to do is you got to have a data provider. That's step 1. Now, when I'm building my lists, I usually am looking at a couple things. Like first off, I see a lot of people try to build lists using revenue data. Do not use revenue data for privately held companies. It's inaccurate. Headcount is a far better understanding of the size of an organization and is more accurate because you can scrape that from LinkedIn with a high level of accuracy compared to privately held revenue numbers. Okay. Technology is a great one, like Directive. I know if someone has Marketo, they're more mature as a marketing org, and they're more likely ready for an agency like Directive, who's going to really level them up with its methodology, belief system, perspectives, tracking, implementation, execution, all of those pieces that are gonna, like, we need to be successful. We need a certain level of maturity, and Marketo or HubSpot or Pardot is a good sign of that. We also need some type of funding, right? We're not cheap. We don't want to be cheap. We want to be impactful. So we want to make sure that these clients can afford us, right? So we want to look at funding, employee size, tech, right? There's all sorts of different things for every industry that's indicative of what your ideal customer looks like. You can also back yourself into it. Okay, one of the things I recommend oftentimes is take your current client list, upload that data to one of these data providers, enrich it. Then you can start to choose your niche. You can start to understand your personas. You can then enrich that client list with also your point of contacts. You can see what titles they have, what their experience level is, and you can start to really understand who exactly is the perfect fit for our product or our service. Okay. Now, we also built Pulse to help ourselves. So we have over 25,000 SaaS companies in this database, and then we fully enrich this database with all of their search marketing data. So we can also see the investment a SaaS company has made into their SEO, the investment a SaaS company has made into their advertising budget. And we can once again create a directive score that's more indicative of if this person is a great fit for us or not. The better you get with data, the more accurate you get with your advertising, and this is critical to customer generation. And this is free. You can check it out on our website if you want to look at it and kind of see where you rank. It has industries and sub-industries, and it's really, really detailed and pretty cool. Now, once we've done all that, there's a big part that I got wrong that I don't want you to get wrong, and that's you got to manually verify your total addressable market. You got to manually verify it. My point being here is if you don't, look what happened to us. We initially pulled 9,000 accounts out of ZoomInfo. We also used VLOOKUPs and conditional logic to filter this the best we could using descriptions and industries and things like that. We got that initial list all the way down to 9,000 accounts using automation and tools. But then the whole point of customer generation is that you have manually verified that every single solitary ad dollar is going to an account that you want to one day work with. That completely changes your creativity, your go-to-market strategy, your confidence, your ability to report. It is the single most important thing with your go-to-market strategy is that you have manually verified that every single solitary account you're going to advertise to could one day be a customer. So we had to click on every single URL and manually verify it. By doing so, with ZoomInfo, the best data provider in the world, in my opinion, we went from 9,000 accounts to 3.9 thousand accounts. Now, contextually, why is this so important? I would argue that right now, if you are using LinkedIn, Facebook, or any other type of advertising platform that uses firmographics, 50% of your budget is wasted before you ever turn it on, because there's that much waste around what the types of companies that are in the industry that they're saying you're targeting. In other words, the computer software industry on LinkedIn, I would argue 50% of those customers are not actually people that are in computer software that would fit our business. That right there is the biggest problem in demand generation today and in advertising today, is that who you think you're advertising to is a black box, and I would argue that it's 50% inaccurate before you ever launch your campaign. Customer generation fixes that. Next thing we want to do is we want to integrate to Salesforce. We want to use Salesforce as our source of truth for our advertising. Now, normally when I get to speak in front of a conference and I can see your lovely faces, I would have you raise your hands right now and say, who here feels really good about reporting on the top of funnel success of their advertising? In other words, that the impressions they're delivering are valuable, they know it, and their executive team believes it. And it doesn't matter how big the room is, nobody's hand goes up. We all stink, myself included, at reporting on how our advertising is being effective towards our vision of taking market share for our industry. When you integrate your first party data and your TAM into Salesforce, you can change that. What you're able to do is get everything integrated to Salesforce, get it set up on Segment, and you can start distributing all your data in real time to all your channels. So that's what we're doing here, right? We've got Salesforce, but then it goes to Google Ads, it goes to Facebook, it goes to GA. All our data is being distributed in real time. Now, the reason this is so important is you can now completely change the way you're articulating the success of your advertising and connect advertising success with the CEO's vision and the board's vision, your funding's vision. And you can talk about market penetration and market share. So at Directive, since launching customer generation about 11 months ago, 12 months ago, we have booked sales meetings with 1.2 thousand accounts from our 3.9 thousand TAM, and we have at least 31% market share right now from our advertising efforts. When you build this report to your executive team and are able to articulate the success of your campaigns according to market share penetration, I guarantee you, you're going to get more buy-in, more budget, and more support for your efforts. Okay, so this is how you can report on it. It's a very simple report, and this will allow you to become exponentially more aligned with your executive team and get way more buy-in for your ad efforts. Cool. Now, let's talk about principle number 2. We've got our first party data. We've got it fully integrated. We know exactly who we want to advertise to, who we want to market to. We've got that. Now what we need to do is we have to identify why do we exist and who do we exist for. So many of us talk about what we do, our features, our product, but we don't talk about why our product exists and who it exists for. Okay? We got to fix that. So this is what's going on, right? In the SaaS community, in the B2B community, just in general, we usually have our product A, product B, product C, platform that ties it all together. This is our products. And everybody wants to be product led, right? We're going to go to market, product led. And honestly, there's parts of it that are great. But the bigger issue is you leave a lot of money on the table and you struggle to activate your actual ideal customer for your individual solutions. So instead of thinking about your products as product A, product B, product C, what customer generation wants you to do is move to a customer-led approach where you're structuring around segments and needs. So you have solution A to segment A, solution B to segment B. This change in how you write your copy, position your value propositions, and articulate your value to your ideal customer persona is the difference between a poor conversion rate and a great conversion rate, which then transpires into your ability to monetize your ads, monetize your SEO, or not. And so I want to show you a really great example of how you can do this. So this is just like a simple worksheet where you can think about jobs to be done, customer needs, customer voice, challenges, outcomes, criteria, unique value prop, and you can start to map these to your products and solutions, and you can start to really understand why do we exist and who do we exist for. Okay, this is so important. Now, once we've done that, we can be a lot more successful. Now, instead of talking in vagueness, I want to give you a practical case study of someone I think who does this really, really well, and that's Workable. So what they've done, if they've translated the way they articulate their value to outcomes, not inputs. And so Workable, their ideal customer persona, is a HR manager at a company with less than 100 employees who is just completely overloaded with work. And so they need support to source and attract new candidates. They need support on how to evaluate and collaborate with others. They need support on how to automate and hire. Okay? These are the outcomes you get from using the Workable product. This is one of my favorite organizations of a product suite I've ever seen. Now, from this, they don't just do this on their bottom of funnel, right? Their purchase intent. They bring this into their informational intent. Now, if I could see your lovely faces once again, I'd love to ask you how many people here can consistently get their thought leaders of their business to create content? And once again, nobody's hand goes up. This is like the hardest part about SEO and content marketing is the people who know what the heck they're talking about, you can't get to write. And the people who write don't know what the heck they're talking about. So even if you rank, it doesn't make you money. That's really the situation we're all stuck in. And so what I want us to do is I want us to embrace a jobs to be done and functional content mentality. And that's what Workable's done. So what Workable's done is said, what problems could we help solve for our ideal customer persona, the HR manager at a company with under 100 employees? Well, they need job descriptions. They need salary ranges. They need interview questions. And all of these things are factual, scalable, and don't require thought leadership and directly integrate to their product. And so from that strategy, I highly encourage you to go check it out. Check out the HR templates, check out the HR toolkit, and the way they integrate their content to their product is phenomenal. Best I've ever seen. It's inspirational. Check it out. And they're driving over 35 million visits a year. This works. It's helping them take massive market share at a low customer acquisition cost. And I highly recommend you review their strategy because it can make you customer led and change your business. Now, the other way we do this is on the paid side, is understanding our ideal customer persona and the jobs to be done. For example, many of us try to scale Google ads from bottom of funnel to top, and we aren't successful. What I mean by that is, let's say you're selling like Workable, okay? You advertise on ATS software, applicant tracking software, but then you do well there, but then you want to grow your spend and want to grow your market. So you start to have to advertise on informational intent, like what is ATS software? But it's really hard to connect someone from informational intent to purchase intent, so those campaigns usually fail. What jobs to be done helps you do, it says, how do I decrease time to hire? And that's a job to be done for that HR manager. So you start to advertise on jobs to be done instead of informational intent. And it creates this expanded funnel that has a 1-to-1 ratio to purchase intent and lets you be very successful. Okay. Now we also need to map offers and test. Okay. So we assess the client's buyer journey, map offers to customer segments, provide recommendations, right? What will get someone from apathy to action? We need to do audience research. This is anecdotal, but one of the biggest gaps I see is small budgets across a lot of channels because we want to test or experiment. I would encourage you to only advertise in a channel if you have $10,000 in spend, and not spread $10,000 across Facebook, LinkedIn, and Google, because you're actually delaying your learnings and you're decreasing your time to be successful. Then you need to plan out your campaigns, understand where you're going to go, and then map your messaging. Okay, so this is a little bit how we do it at a high level. Now, we're going to talk about principle number 3. Financial modeling is a need to have. And I'm going to give you all some really cool financial models that we put a lot of time, money, and effort into. Okay. Marketers in general are not great at financial modeling and are not finance professionals. Because of that, we oftentimes struggle to have the right seat at the table. We struggle to connect our efforts to revenue, and we struggle to get the respect, authority, and budget we deserve as marketers. This financial model can help change that and really, really improve your ability to be a valuable partner to the executive team and to the business's vision. So the first thing we do, we got to get our numbers, okay? We need to know what your customer lifetime value is. We need to know lifespan of a customer. We need to really learn about the financials of your business, okay? From that, we're going to put this into a sheet and look at your actual historical performance. So in Q2, what'd you spend on Google Ads? How many leads did you get? How many demos did you have? How many deals did you get? What's your estimated revenue annually from that? And then we can come up with a cost per lead, cost per demo. Okay. This lets you help do better target CPA, better offline conversion tracking, OCT, and Google Ads, be more dynamic with spend, and really know if you have product market fit. In other words, can you monetize the revenue you close? Because we got to take into account gross margin, lifespan, retention rate, things like that. So what customer generation is all about, it's about generating customers, but also not just any customers, your most profitable, your best customers, okay? This is a really critical part of it. Now, from this tracking, what it really lets us do better is understand where should we spend more money, where should we spend less, and what do we need to do to hit our goals in Q3? What would you need to change? What budget would we need, right? And I love to ask this question. I wish I could see y'all, but the big thing that we all struggle with is we get a board or an executive who says you need to grow revenue by 15% this quarter, and you say, sweet, can I get 15% more budget? And they say no. So now you have to turn into a miracle worker, and you don't have a way of pushing back and saying that's impossible, and this will provide that. Now, as a slight note, We use First Touch here only because a lot of our clients don't have the multi-touch maturity to pull this off, even though these are mid-market or publicly traded companies with awesome, amazing departments. They're still struggling across the board with marketing ops and attribution. So for this type of model, what we're trying to look at is where would we spend another dollar to get another customer? And it's oftentimes hard to fund indirect channels, complementary channels. We want to fund channels that have that first touch, okay? And so from that, what we do is we say, cool, this is what you're going to do in Q3, and we can build out these different assumptions and models, and you can put your goals in and say, well, in Q3, we got 100, demos in Q2, or we got 75 demos in Q2. We want to get 100 demos in Q3. This will show the demo increase, the spend required, thus the increase in spend, and then the incremental ROI. This gives you, and you can see the LTV CAC ratio by channel. This is an exceptional way to articulate value, and I actually have given you all this tool so you all can use this now as part of your quarterly campaign planning to level up your financial modeling and your ability to articulate value, increase your budget, and be more valuable to the organization. Now, second to last thing we're gonna look at is why SQLs beat MQLs every time. And this is kind of the meat and potatoes, right? This is that tactic. We've talked a lot about the infrastructure, the methodology. This is that like tactical side of how we monetize customer generation, okay? So first thing we have to do is we have to address the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room in advertising today is this. Google has intent, but not great firmographics. Okay, what I mean by that is if I'm a SaaS SEO agency, like I am, or a SaaS performance marketing agency, which I am, there's not that many people looking for it. So I have to say I'm an SEO agency. But I know that if 100 people search for SEO agency, only 5 of them are SaaS, let's say. So immediately I have 95% waste on my campaign. So it's really hard to monetize Google ads when you're in a niche or when you have a high average order value, because the majority of the customers who search that query don't fit. And then when you specify your query, there's not enough people searching for you to make it a substantial revenue channel. So you're kind of stuck. Conversely, on paid social, you have a lot of people that you can target with firmographics, but they have no intent. And so most of you, I would argue, are running gated assets, the ultimate guide to customer generation. And then you target it at demand gen people or whoever, they download it, you have your SDR call them, and they're not ready for a meeting. So you can't monetize paid social, and sponsored content's so expensive that it doesn't work because it doesn't hit your cost per demo goals. So you can't get people to a demo from social, and you can't get enough demos from Google. That was my reality for 8 years, and that's why we couldn't grow until we uncovered this, which is how do we get an incentive so good that you can create intent from social? How do I get someone from apathy to action? And gift cards did that for us. And I want to show you the data from it. So we tested across hundreds of thousands of dollars the difference between a $50 gift card, cost per form fill, $280, cost per lead, which is a sales qualified meeting in this case, $330 to get someone to talk to an SDR. Here, $72 and $172 to talk to an SDR. We couldn't get on Zero, we couldn't get anybody to really talk to SDRs. So that was like way more than $330. So my point being here is, ironically, gift cards save you money. Now let's talk about why when it comes to like a financial model of this, okay? What's happening is all of our advertising in 2021 exists in an auction-based environment for the most part. So every time a competitor advertises, or someone who's not even a competitor, maybe it's a SaaS product and I'm services, or it's their services and I'm SaaS, whatever that is, anytime someone advertises to my same audience, it increases the cost of my ad reaching that audience by a greater rate than I can increase my conversion rate or my price point, creating diminishing marginal returns for my ad channel. So what we have to do is get better at activation, not decrease acquisition cost. Most advertisers today are focused on decreasing your cost per acquisition. And what they need to be focused on is increasing your percentage of activation. Well, by first initially only advertising to people who are qualified, check. And then by focusing on giving our money to our prospect and not our platform, we can change the economics of our advertising and the success of it. See, most of us right now, if we have a $10,000 budget for LinkedIn, we give $10,000 to LinkedIn. What I want to encourage you to do is not give your full channel budget to the platform and instead give parts of your budget to your prospect. By doing so, you're going to drastically lower your acquisition cost, and you can model all of this out in the LTV CAC model we just talked about earlier, okay? Next, what we want to do is we need Sendoso for gift sending. We need to send gifts at scale, and it's hard to do without this. So we use Sendoso, also a customer of ours, which is pretty sweet, but something to be aware of. Then what you want to do is you can't just get people to fill out your conversation ad, right? We're doing this all on Convo ads as well as sponsored content, but sponsored content's pretty expensive. So we figured out a different way to scale, which I'm going to show you in a second. But our primary channel for gift card sending is LinkedIn conversation ads. Now, the cool part about Convo ads is it uses a lead gen form, gets their information, it kind of pre-fills it, auto-fills it, and it goes. Now, the hard part of all of this, and the most important thing, is getting a commitment out of someone. See, them saying they want the gift card is the incentive, but it's not a commitment. So they still technically haven't booked the meeting. And because they haven't booked the meeting, your SDR team is going to really struggle to be successful because they're following up with people who haven't made a commitment. That's the psychology part of it. When we launched this campaign, it took us 6 months to advertise. I want to repeat that. When we launched customer generation, it took us 6 months to monetize. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, countless sleepless nights trying to figure it out. Okay? You're going to have to retool your business. A lot of your SDRs are not used to having conversations with someone who doesn't want your product yet. They just want the gift card. So how do you get someone from wanting a gift card to wanting directive? Well, the first step is making them make a commitment while they're in the Convo ad layout. So we use Chili Piper to get people to book a meeting. Here's the data behind it. Without Chili Piper, we had a 34% form fill to intro held conversion rate. With Chili Piper, we have a 51%. This covers Chili Piper's bill 1 billion times over, and I cannot recommend it enough. And then what we did is we integrated this to all our form fills. So if you're on our website, you fill out our form, immediately what I want you to do is book a meeting, because now I can follow up with you and I know your attendance rate is going to skyrocket, and I'm going to get a lot more efficient on my life cycle stages from one step to the next. Now, what I want to do is I need to teach my SDRs and AEs on how to have these intro calls. You can't forget this part. Your sales org is used to people who have intent. They're used to doing people, like they're used to following up with people who requested a demo. In customer generation, when it comes to paid social, I'm not pitching a demo. I'm pitching a intro call, the next step, a strategy call for us to learn your business, give you some new ideas and a new perspective. Well, I need to train my SDRs on how I get people to not only show up to that meeting, but go from that step to the next step, okay? This is the actual nuance. From day one, we were able to get our target total addressable market to book meetings. Monetizing them comes down to improving your sales org and also improving your value prop, why you exist and who you exist for. Like, why do they need your product? And it has to be real. Now, from this, we're using things like Bant, intro call decks, and we're coming up with all sorts of creative ways to create the sexiest, most enjoyable sales experience in the world. But here's a little bit of what you need to do. You need to get budget, authority, needs, and timeline so you can map your thought leaders to the opportunity and increase your close rate, okay? Now, while doing all this, here's how we improved intro meeting attendance. And one of the biggest things is you got to get people from wanting the gift card to wanting your product or your service. We did that with a hype video, which I'm going to show you in a second. And what it was able to do, plus we had automated reminders, text messages, we removed Monday mornings and Friday afternoons. There's all types of little tactics you can take from this. But the biggest hypothesis we had to do is how do we get someone from wanting a $100 gift card to wanting directive? In other words, the gift card is the incentive. How do we get them to wanting the value? And that we did mostly with this video. And that hype video was able to tell that story. Now, combo ads are great. I love them. Now, the problem with combo ads, though, is you can't scale that easily. Okay? It's really hard to scale combo ads because you can only send one combo ad to an individual every 30 days. And so we scaled using sponsored content, but anyone who's ever done sponsored content has probably found that sponsored content is very expensive. So we discovered a tool called Clearbit X. Clearbit X takes all that LinkedIn level targeting and brings it over to Facebook. Since launching on this, we spent $120,000. We got 5.6 million in pipeline, and we have a 63% lower cost per opportunity than LinkedIn sponsored content. Facebook has given us scale for this approach, and I highly recommend you check it out. And we've got $351,000 in ROI and a 4.44 LTV CAC. Pretty sweet. Okay. Now, lastly, we're going to talk about why there's no such thing as B2B, and we're going to wrap up today. So B2B has this kind of thing where I see in creative where we optimize for safeness. Direct to consumer is all about building a brand, creating an emotional connection, standing for something, being something, having a viewpoint on the world. And B2B is like, nah, let's be boring. We sell corporations. But it's a lie. You sell to individuals, and we need to create an emotional connection with individuals. And so here's how we're doing that for ourselves, and I'll show you real quick. So I don't know how the audio is for you, and I can't hear you all, so apologies. But the goal here is quite simply to create an emotional connection with our audience. And so one of the things we've developed is this emotion matrix. And what we want to do is we want to make, like in that case, I want you to feel like you're ready to run through a brick wall. I want you to be inspired. I want you to fall in love with marketing again. I want you to believe that this could work and why, and that there is a real way to do it and that other people have. I want you to essentially visualize and validate the customer's vision of themselves. I want to instill confidence. That's what I'm trying to do. But maybe your brand's different, okay? And you have all these different types of emotional triggers that you can start to understand that you want to create through your creative and your advertising and your messaging, your copy, and your positioning, okay? We have to understand emotion. We have to integrate it to our marketing. We have to understand that people make emotional decisions, not scientific ones, and operate accordingly. So, in closing, where can you learn more about customer generation? Check out Join Society, completely free Slack group. I'm on there. You can DM me. Everyone who runs growth at Directive, it's a pretty large team. They're in there. You can ask them anything you want. It's pretty sweet. And then we also have over 1,000 members that are all fairly active, like genuinely a part of it. And they are awesome, just amazing people with great insights from some of the best companies in the world. And then we do 2 shows a week, Sour and Sass and the SaaS Marketing Makeover. You can check out. Obviously, I'd love to have you book an intro call, learn more about our services and how we can pair with you. We offer strategy, SEO, paid media, marketing ops, and creative, okay? All of which are fully built to support a B2B or SaaS organization to take market share. So check it out. It's pretty sweet. You can also see where you're at on our scorecard, kind of grade yourself, kind of see where you're at, give you some ideas on what you can change. And thank you so much. And that right there is customer generation. So thanks, everybody.
Awesome, Garrett. That was very, I mean, I would say that was very inspirational. As a marketer, I mean, you definitely touched on a couple of things that, I mean, for sure, put things in perspective, right? You know, the leaders, they want more leads, but they don't want more budget. You know, you talked about optimizing for safety. And I think that that really speaks volumes. So the place that I just came from, we were manufacturing. It doesn't get any more safe than that, right? So, but I mean, that was one of the big things is how do you talk to people? Because you're still selling to people, even though you're in the B2B space, and they still buy things just like a consumer would, just a little bit different, a little more red tape, right? So awesome. So we've got 20 minutes. We've got some good questions. So let's get to it. So Caroline is asking, are there similar tools in HubSpot? Because you mentioned Marketo, right? Or do you strongly recommending only those platforms which you mentioned, which are Chili Pepper and Calendly? But what about some other ones that might integrate with HubSpot for the companies using that?
I love HubSpot, huge fan.
I do too.
I was on Marketo. HubSpot's better than Marketo, just flat out. I mean, I guess you have these use cases of like massive international marketing, but I mean, you need like a very, very extreme use case to want to choose a platform like Marketo, which really has poor adoption across the marketing and growth org as a whole due to its inability to just dive in and figure it out. That high learning curve really hurts adoption and its leverage to actually be effective, number one. Number two, we use Chili Piper instead of the HubSpot scheduling because the lead routing in HubSpot wasn't strong enough. And I found that it was very difficult to control which type of leads went to which SDRs and how often. Calendly, for example, is what we started with, but Calendly doesn't do dynamic lead routing. And so like Susan, let's say, for example, would wake up Monday morning and have 20 calls, and then Ryan has none. And then on Wednesday, Susan has no calls and Ryan has 20. And I couldn't balance out their capacity and create a healthy mix of sales activities. And that's why we use Chili Piper.
Yeah, I think that's a really good use case. If you're using something like Salesforce, there's tools in there that help route them as well. HubSpot, the same thing. So, Caroline, I would just look at the tools you have and the functionality, and I'll of course reach out to their help desk if you want more functionality that maybe you're not having.
And I want that auto booking feature though. I didn't feel like I got that well enough from HubSpot upon form fill. Because that's my tech stack, just so you know. My tech stack's HubSpot and Salesforce, and then I have a bunch of products that surround it. I just couldn't. I did test all those. Obviously, I'm not like in the business of spending money, so I was trying to save and use those platforms. I just ran into issues with the way they did routing, in all honesty. So but yeah, you can try it. I highly encourage you always to use the tools you have, but I wasn't able to figure it out for myself.
So Laura is asking, she says all marketing is B2C. So exactly right, we're there with you, Laura. So she says, how does that fit in, or does it with ABM? So with account-based marketing?
Well, yeah, because the account doesn't buy. I don't know who, there's an individual at the account that matters. And now the problem with ABM, in my opinion, is they only really do function level targeting. So you have a couple issues. Okay, so I used Terminus for over a year. And I try to always test everything, right? So we have a 1.2 to 1.8 million research and development budget at Directive a year. So I'm talking, we're spending serious dough here to test these out for y'all and figure out what works and what doesn't and why. Here's what I ran into with Terminus. I uploaded that same TAM data, same one I'm talking to you about, uploaded into Terminus. Now their DSP, what they distribute to those accounts, is primarily Google Display Network and doesn't leverage video. It's using static ads. So in other words, I call them invisible billboards. Billboards that you see, but you never notice and you just ignore. Now, I am not able to, in Terminus, like I would be in a programmatic vendor like StackAdapt, set viewability. I can't look at the value of a conversion, number one. Number two, when I add in my total addressable market an account like Adobe, they eat up a massive percent of my budget due to how large their marketing function is. And I wasn't able to do frequency capping on accounts. And so when you have Adobe in your TAM as a target account, 90% of your budget goes to Adobe, even though there's only maybe 10 buyers in all of Adobe that you need to drive awareness to, but you can't focus into them because you're doing marketing function more than marketing individuals. And so that level of granularity and control I do not have in any of the ABM advertising providers. And that's why I moved back to using all native channels where I could have control and focus and better allocation of my capital.
That's a great explanation. So let's see. Felix says that he's interested in interesting case of gift cards. The Chinese use it a lot. How can it be implemented without breaking any rules?
Well, there's only rules if you're a publicly traded company around gift giving or if you're in some types of industries that are regulated. There is no rule that says I can't sling gift cards for meetings. So the question is do you save money on gift cards? Because when you pitch this to an executive, their immediate response is, so you're going to increase my cost per acquisition by $100? Because they're only looking at the initial in-platform performance, not your pipeline performance. In other words, you need to evaluate the success of gift cards based off of your cost per demo, not your cost per form fill, both of which, by the way, will improve. But the goal of a gift card is to get someone from apathy to action. How do I get someone from LinkedIn who doesn't want me and isn't searching for me to say, you know what, I'll give you 29 minutes to check you out because I'm a little bored right now. For 29 minutes, $100 gift card would be kind of nice. That's the honest truth. But how else am I going to get them to 29 minutes if they have no intent? I need something to incentivize them. So you can replace that with physical gifts. You can replace that with anything you think is valuable enough. But most of us are advertising and we don't have an equitable exchange. In other words, someone gives us, think about what you probably do right now. I would argue that everyone here is in SaaS. Their call to action is request a demo. So I go to your website, I request a demo. It says, thank you, someone will reach out from our team in the next 24 hours. What did I get? I got nothing from you in return. And I still have to give you more time, talk to an SDR. The SDR is not going to really know everything, and all I really want to know is price. So now I have to do a second meeting with an AE, but they aren't really a sales engineer. So now I have to do a third meeting to finally see the freaking product, and I haven't even got a quote yet. That's how most of it's like to buy from y'all. How do we change that? How do we create a more equitable exchange where I give you my information and my time, and in return, I get a gift card plus 3 tactics that I didn't know about before from a fully prepared thought leader professional? Now that creates a pipeline and ability to monetize your advertising. So I think you just have to think of it more from your customer's perspective and less from your own.
I think that's a great way to look at it. So Cindy's asking, have you tested native ads and had any success? And if so, do you have any recommendations?
I mean, this is a native ad, right? I mean, in simplest form, this is pretty much a native ad, right? I'm using your audience to communicate my content and I'm paying for it. It's literally a native ad, right? So does it work? Yeah, we closed ZoomInfo from SEJ last year and it was a $500,000 contract for a $10,000 webinar or something, whatever it was back then. So yes, it works. I think the key once again is to know exactly who you're talking to and not fall for the native ad company's request. What I mean by that is native ads and people who sell it rarely are as niched as your product is. And so they usually want you to neutralize your content so you can get more attendees. But once again, you're optimizing for customers and customer generation, not MQLs. So if you go into native advertising trying to drive MQLs, I believe it will fail. If you go into native advertising trying to drive customers, I think it can succeed. And that's why I said laughingly on the poll, I only need one customer. I'm not here to try to get everybody. I want my ideal customer to say, you know what, I've never heard anyone talk like this. And you're right, demand generation isn't working for us. And you're right, MQLs aren't turning into revenue. We need a different, better way of doing it. I'm interested. And so I think native advertising is phenomenal. I think you have to have a real viewpoint on the world though, and a real reason of why you exist and who you exist for. And now native advertising can really, really develop revenue for your business.
Great. And so Cindy goes on to ask, she's got another question. And what she's talking about here is Clearbit, is when you talked about Clearbit. So she's asking about specifying importing LinkedIn audiences into Facebook. And I don't think that's not how it works. So can you explain a little bit maybe how Clearbit works?
Yeah, so Clearbit has their own data, right? They're a data provider. Now what they've done is they've essentially built that so they can integrate that data directly into Facebook. So you get that B2B targeting you don't get on Facebook anymore. And so we can now essentially target the industries and or accounts that we want to go after and test those different targeting options, and then essentially reach this hidden audience that we can't reach with that laser focus of specificity of 100% confidence, we can't reach them, frankly, any other way on Facebook. And so this is giving us that laser focus to essentially reach that audience that we don't have the targeting availability to do outside of Clearbit. And so that lets us go into and get a way more reach, right? LinkedIn is not the most active social channel. It's way better to reach people on Instagram than it is to try to reach them on LinkedIn. Problem is you couldn't target them on Instagram before Clearbit. By using Clearbit, we can target them on Instagram, and that unlocks a lot of that scale. It's a lot easier to spend your budget and drive volume. Convo ads hard to drive volume. It's very efficient, it's very effective, but it's hard to create scale because you can only send one message every 30 days, and it's always that same TAM. So you have to constantly redo your messaging, your value props, and all this stuff. Facebook gives you a lot more reach and a lot more exposure.
Yeah, I don't know like how many older marketers we have on the call, but I mean the amount of targeting options that you used to have in Facebook, I mean, you could just scroll for days. I mean, there were tons of them. You could get very granular. And, you know, missing all of that, you know, to your point, moving to LinkedIn, just that CPL, it just doesn't make it worth it all the time. So having, you know, another way to look at it, you know, it can be great for generating those leads.
1,000%.
Customers. So let's talk, you know, one of the questions that I had as I was going through stuff, because I come from corporate America, and looking at the way that we used to pull our data from ZoomInfo, you know, so you talked about going from 9,000 accounts down to like, what was it, 3,000? Almost 4. Yeah. So, you know, how did you, let's talk about scale. How did you do that? How do you take 9,000 accounts and go through them? Did you, and I know you have a big team, did you divvy that up? Did you do it all at one time? Or did you do it like just slowly throughout the course of a few months?
No, I think we did it in a week, and we just turned into like just data like servants, and just one by one we broke up the 9,000 and each person got, you know, 500 of them, and then they had a whole week to manually verify each and click on each, and that was it. It was just good old manual labor, like building the pyramids, you know.
Yeah, I do. And so many people rely on that data. So, you know, there's that piece of it, you know, looking beyond what just they provide is so important.
Oh my God. I mean, I'm telling you, I have all the data providers and I do the best you can humanly do. And there's still 50% waste. Like that is such a shocking fact to the success of your ad campaigns that I don't think we're ever giving fair credence to, is that 50% of your budget is wasted on the audience, not even the placement or the targeting, not bots, not anything else, just from due to data quality. And fixing that is worth every minute of time it takes to manually verify.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. So Caroline's asking, I love it, Caroline. You should come to more of our webinars. You ask a lot of questions. I love it. So she's asking, when you buy third-party data and then manually vet the list, which is what we were just talking about, do you ever email them from your email provider? And do you have an issue with high bounce spam reports, or do you just do LinkedIn versus any email? You know, because that's a thing that, you know, we saw the same thing. You export a list from ZoomInfo. Do you just throw it in your ESP, or, you know, do you vet them a little further than that?
No, I mean, once you manually verified, you can, but like what we're doing is we're using outreach.io. And then I have like a .co subdomain instead of a .com, so that I have like that, but I also have sending limits, and I'm not bulk sending, and I'm sending from individuals. So you have to learn the email DSP kind of game a little bit, or whatever it's called. I forget how the MSP, whatever it is. But yeah, you have to figure out that game. We use outreach.io, and we're not bulk sending. We're not sending like through our Marketo or our HubSpot like that. We're essentially, now we have lists, and if those pixels reach our site, we'll activate them, but we're not raw sending it. We're having to, you know, still do it the right way. And we're not just spamming people. So it's still going through, you know, an outreach cadence that's individual from a sender, like an actual real human. Or it's triggered based off of their pixel reconciling with the database.
Yeah, and that's a good point. So Caroline, I think, is the one that she was the one that asked about HubSpot. So Caroline, if you're using HubSpot, that functionality is in there, and once those leads go to the salesperson, you know, they'll see them and they can just email straight from there.
Exactly. Sequences and ways to automate that, but it should still come from individual senders. And if you're doing it at that level with like less than 100 to 200 emails a day, you're not going to trigger spam. You're not going to get black box or blackballed. So you're good there, or
Yeah.
blacklisted is the word.
So let's see. So another question we had come in. It says, how would you recommend manually verifying the TAM? And we did kind of touch on this, but like, what did that process actually look like for one of your team members? I mean, did they just go to the website and verify, or were there, did they go to the contact page? So like, just walk us through what one account might look like to verify.
Yeah, I think the underlying context has to be like, do you really know your TAM? Like, do you really know who you exist for? I think so many of us are scared to just say we just do SaaS. By having a no, it's a lot easier to know what's a yes. So for us, it's fairly easy. Like, one of the issues with the computer software category, for example, in a data provider, is you get a lot of outsourced software development, and you get a lot of IT companies. You also get a lot of like weird legacy SaaS companies that might have been acquired or sold or shut down. And so I'm mostly looking at, like, if you know the game, I think like we all do, you can click on a website and go, yep, that company is like mature enough for marketing support. Or you can look at it and be like, well, we don't do website development, and holy cow, I don't think I could do anything for these guys. So you've got your firmographic data, like, do they have enough employees? Do they have the right funding? Do they use the right technology? And then you still have to do kind of your sniff test, which is this a website that I would want to work on personally? Because if I wouldn't want to be the consultant for it, I don't think it's fair to advertise it and make it someone else's problem.
That's a great way to look at it. So we got about 6 minutes left. One of the things that I want to make sure folks know before we check out is that they will get the recording today, which will include the links to the spreadsheets and everything that you have already graciously put together for them, right?
Yep.
So let's see.
And I only have 3 minutes because I got to do a company all hands at 11, Heather, so apologies.
You got it. Nope, I think we're good. I think we've gotten through all of the questions. So let's do our wrap up. Garrett, always a pleasure. Love having you on. I think that, I walked away with a few new things, and I think our audience definitely walked away with some new bits. Before we go, why don't you close us out? Give us one last pitch for Directive and anything you want our viewers to know.
Yeah, Directive is really special. We do, for example, while I was doing this at 10:30 today, we do all hands strategy session every Monday through Thursday. We have our own product department here where we're actually testing, innovating, challenging the hypotheses we all operate from. We have a world-class executive team. All we do is SaaS. We have world-class learning and development, recruiting. Everything we do is built around our customers and accomplishing what we call your North Star metric. So we're going to work with you to understand your North Star metric. And then we're going to help you validate that that's the right North Star metric through financial modeling. And then we're going to help you really understand who your ICP is, why you exist for them. And then we're going to go get them, and we're going to help you turn them into customers. And I think that level of intensity, focus, and commitment matters, right? We don't have outside funding. We built this whole company on 20 bucks. We got no debt, and we're running on a low amount of EBITDA, like unlike many of our competitors. We're choosing to reinvest into our product. We're choosing to reinvest into our customers, and we exist to turn every client into a case study. And if you want to work with an agency that's this damn serious about you, then I highly recommend you check out Directive. And there's a reason why we are the fastest growing agency in SaaS and maybe even out there. And so highly recommend checking us out and trying to see if you can't level up your perspective of what an agency can do for your business.
I love it. And just real quick, you guys got awarded or nominated for a few US Search Awards, is that right?
Yeah, I think we're shortlisted for over 16 awards. The creative team won over 32 awards this year. We have all the necessary pieces to help a director of demand gen at a SaaS company with over 100 employees or well-funded accomplish your NSM. And we are uniquely gifted in doing so.
I love it. Well, let's get you to that all hands. So we'll talk to you later, Garrett. Thanks everyone for being here. We'll see you next time.